kind of been a seeker. I've always been interested in like why do we do the things that we do? What is human nature? Why are we here? I've always kind of had that happening in the background, but it wasn't really accepted among my peers. I was always the sensitive one, and I would get made fun of for that. So I kind of shoved it down, compartmentalized that, and tried to do what I was supposed to do, or what I thought that was. And eventually it got to a breaking point where I said I've got to I've got to see someone about this. So I went to therapy for a little bit. I wasn't getting a lot out of therapy. I think therapy is great, but I was looking for something a little more like grounded and um, something that would maybe focus on my goals more and give me something tangible and is in a more restricted time frame. Like therapy, my parents have both been in therapy for like 30 years, and I wanted something that was a little tighter. So I hired a life coach. At that point, I was like, things are great in my life. I'm with a girl I love, all these different things, but I don't like what I do. And that has kind of, once I hired a life coach, I've gone down this path of just continued self discovery. And so I guess all of that to say that's how I got into this work. And what made me decide to have this event is that these are a lot of the tools that I've accumulated over my personal discovery that have helped me from a very foundational level get clear on the life that I want. Because I know the immense pain of being disaligned and not aligned with my work and my life, and I want to help other people get more alignment in their life because I know how painful that can be. So I hope that was helpful. And thank you all for sharing where you're calling from. I'm calling from the Upper East Side in Manhattan. I've lived in this apartment for about 4 years now with my now wife, and I love it here. So let's kick it off to the first slide. I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone, Brenda, just give me thumbs up if you can see that. Great. So the first exercise that I want everyone to do is to just first take an inventory of the different domains of your life. I think myself, I can get very focused on a couple of these. Like my work at one point was the only thing I was focused on, and then maybe joy in social life and relationships. Like those were the only things that I paid any mind to at one point. But it's really important to have, I think as humans we all have a deep desire for creativity, and that might show up differently in different people. Like I'm terrible at painting, and I'm not good at playing any instruments particularly, but I love to journal and write. And even in relationship, when I'm coaching someone, there's an aliveness in the conversation in that I have no idea where this is going to go. Let's like co-create something together here. So that's been an area that I focus more on. And for you, like take an inventory of these different domains of your life, and on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe rank the ones that you're feeling most called to rank, and in a non-judgmental, completely compassionate way to yourself, where make the observation: where do you feel the most fulfilled, where do you feel the least fulfilled? And I can say for me, this is a constantly evolving thing. What got me into this line of work was that most of this circle looked decent, but my spirituality, my creativity, and my connection to career were very low. And so I was really committed to finding those. And one that I'm struggling with right now actually is joy. Like how do I just do something for fun for me? And so I come back to this as a tool all the time. I'll leave maybe a minute or two for quiet reflection here, and take some notes on what's coming up for you. And thank you very much for sharing that. I was just looking at the chat box. Holly, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think, especially, I don't know if your sibling is a man or a woman or how they identify, but I always felt pretty shamed for being sensitive as a male. And so I think it's really important to kind of open up. There's a narrative or a story in my head that made me weaker or less than, and not enough. And I think it can be really helpful to know that one of the best things about being human is that we all are different. There isn't a right way of being. That we all have unique qualities that make us us, and one of those could be sensitive, and it's your beautiful older sister. So thank you for sharing that. And yeah, there's nothing wrong or right about being a certain way. It's just about being the best or more of who you are, is what I always like to say to people. Like, personal development is about becoming more of who you already are, and less about becoming someone that you think you should be. So I'm going to stop the share for now, and I'll give a minute or two for reflection here. Was there anything? Does anyone want to share anything that they noticed, anything that came up for them? And if not, that's perfectly okay, and we'll continue along. Or if you don't want to share via audio, then just going with the chat box can be a helpful way as well.
I think one thing that I was thinking about as I was going through this, right, you're asking about level of satisfaction, but maybe it's the analytical side of me. I kind of wanted to be
Mm.
like, okay, so if we're weighting this though in terms of importance, like kind of being
Mm.
able to say, is joy important to me? Yes. Is it low on my, to be personal, is it low on my satisfaction score? Yes. Right. So that's important to me. Spirituality, not so high, not so important to me.
Yeah.
So um, I want like a 2x2. And anyway,
I love that. Thank you very much for sharing that. That's a great point. Yeah, if it's low and it's not important to you, then by all means, why do we need to take action on that area of your life? So not yeah, if spirituality, if you don't feel, and I would define spirituality, by the way, as just connection to something bigger than yourself. So uh, there's different way. I'm not talking about religion. If that's not important to you, then why do we need to take action towards it? So yes, it's label them as both. Maybe I'm not where I want to be. Maybe it's not important to me. Who the hell cares? On the other hand, I also love to say, like, it's okay for everything to be great. We don't, like, I think a lot of people come to a life coach or a therapist and think, I just need to, there's got to be something wrong. I need to pour my heart out about something that's wrong. Like, it's okay for everything to be great. Really allow yourself to feel that too. I saw something came up in the chat box. Yeah, so thanks again, Holly, for sharing. And yeah, towards the end of this workshop, I always offer to provide coaching. So if you want to talk more about this stuff, even if it's only through the chat box, then I'll be happy to go through this on a more individual basis with you. But we'll get back to that. So I'm going to share again the next slide. And this one is really, really simple, but for many of us, it runs as a background script and is completely unconscious to us. And it's like, what is important to you? And Gail kind of brought this up, right? So spirituality is not one of your values, then who cares? But what are your values? Like, what do you really feel driven towards? What are some words, or put differently, if someone were to describe you with any of these words, which would have the most resonance? Like, what would you feel most honored by to hear? You're kind, that you're powerful, you're trustworthy, you're wealthy. It could be any of them. And again, there's no right or wrong answer. So take some time and go through this list. It's not exhaustive. It doesn't have every possible word. So if there's other things that are not on this list, feel free to pick a couple of words like that. And I'll say, as I go through this list, The one, I'll give two answers. So one for me is compassion. I actually have a reminder on my phone at 8:30 every morning, is like an intention to be compassionate. Just be compassionate to myself and to all other people that I come across. So that's one that I think I've always had done a good job of embodying, at least to other people. I've really had to work on being compassionate to myself. And one that's more of an edge for me that I probably wouldn't have said was that important to me until recently is, I'll say two actually: creativity and curiosity. Like, curiosity is a big one for me. And I'll give an example. Like, just yesterday, I was feeling a little sad. Like, I was kind of stuck in my shit a little bit. And that in the past, and even yesterday to a certain extent, leads to like a spiral. I shouldn't be sad. I start judging myself for being sad. And then I said, yeah, no, curiosity is one of my values. Like, what is this sadness? I asked it a curious question. What is this sadness here to teach me? What is it here to help me with right now? What can I learn from my sadness? And what I started to realize is, oh, I'm feeling a little bit lonely. I could probably stand to reach out to someone I haven't spoken to in a long time and connect with them. And so I did that, and I spoke to one of my coworkers I hadn't connected with in a while. And if it weren't for that sadness and my curiosity around that sadness, I probably would not have reached out to that coworker and had a great conversation. So the curiosity, yeah, I'm really grateful for my curiosity that I'm continuing to hone in on. Again, now I'll leave maybe a moment for reflection, and I'll shut up for a minute and uh, go ahead and choose one of these words that's important to you, and even write out why that word might be important to you. Like, what is important to you about service or harmony or whatever the word is. And you can even define what it means to you. Not like the Merriam-Webster definition, but like, what do those words mean to you and why are they important to you? Give you another 30 seconds or so here. And before we move on, actually, I'm feeling compelled to share this. So I, in at my computer, I have 8 values written down, and they're self-defined. And I wanted to share one. Uh, one of the reasons is selfishly, like, I don't look at these enough, and it would be good for me to get connected again with one of these, and maybe something, it'll spark something for you. So, honesty is one of my core values, and my definition of honesty is being truthful and sincere in whatever the moment calls for. It means being dependable, reliable, and trustworthy, being the type of person that can be turned to, because I will never attempt to deceive you, but will always maintain compassion as well. It is also asking for and giving help when I need it. Therefore, I tell the truth even if it is inconvenient. And that's been a big one for me as a recovering people pleaser. Honesty a lot of time calls for boundary setting. It's telling someone, yeah, I'm not available right now. I have to take care of myself. So I hope that share maybe sparked something for you. And I'll open up the floor again for anyone to share. I see someone post in the chat box again. And did anything come up for you from the values? It did. Maybe you connect to something that you said, "Oh wow, I this is really important to me, and I wasn't paying enough attention to that." That could very much be the case.
I can share. I started by just writing down all the ones that I felt defined me, and then I just circled the one that pulled me the strongest, and it was friendship.
Mm,
And to me, that's connection to the world. It's like
mm.
so important to me. Like I just have this natural need to like know people around me and to like be involved in things. So it's not just friendship, but it's just being connected.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's, one of my core definitions or one of my core values also that I didn't share is family. And my definition is very similar to what you just said, Denise. It's like, yeah, I value my technical family, my sister, my parents and cousins, etc. But also I look at kind of all my friends and even on a bigger level, like all of humanity as potentially family too. Like we all really are in this world together, and it's amazing that we all cohabitate it. So I want to like I feel this deep need to know people as well, and to leave my imprint it whatever interaction I'm in. So thank you for sharing that. And I see Helen, curiosity and creativity, um, same similar to what I said, right? So they're one and the same for you, and they're so intrinsically tied with so many of these values. Exactly. So a lot of these are interwoven. They don't have to be standalone things, and they can play off of each other.
I think one of the, while I was looking at values and really thinking about, okay, so what is it that is important to me and that I want to be important to me? There's also sort of the piece that is important to me, but is getting in the way of things. So like achievement, right? So,
Mm,
sort of feeling like, I haven't really gotten where I want to in my career. Can I accept that, move forward with that because there are other more important things? Or, you know, putting too much weight, like in dating, like, I went to an Ivy League school. I feel like I need someone who's done that and a professional. And so like, do I end up valuing things that are important, but, you know, seem to take an outsized importance to things that are maybe really more kind of um, like sort of external versus an internal intrinsic value.
mm, yeah, yeah, Gail, thank you. A lot of what you're saying resonates with me. I mean, one of the reasons I got into accounting is I'm an analyzer too, and I like to achieve, and I like to get things done too. And where someone goes to school, that matters, right? It shows something about the person, but it's then one of the beautiful things about this exercise is it gets you reflecting. I mean, it's important to me. Am I placing too much emphasis on it? Are there other things that I care about? Am I caring about this because this is what society tells me I should think? There's part of this is that we don't have all the answers. It just gets us thinking about what are the answers, and that's a good place to be. Anything else before we move on? We do have plenty of time, so if you have anything, feel free to share. Okay, so there are two more exercises that I think will be really helpful for you. And this one's a big one, so I'm gonna leave it up for a while. And this is the title of the workshop, right? Envision your ideal life. So the exercise is really try and anchor yourself in 3 years from now. You're picturing this date, October 21st, 2024. And imagine that you have everything you possibly could want in your life. You have the relationships you want. You have a deep level of fulfillment. You're expressing yourself the way you want to express yourself. You're doing work that you care about. Anything that you ever want is there in as specific of detail as possible, and make it like a sensory experience for you. Answer the following questions. Like really feel yourself having just celebrated. And what is it that you're celebrating? Do the same thing for all 9 questions. I'm gonna uh, just sit back and let you guys hack away at this one. It's 11:31 right now. I'll circle back at 11:35. About a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Give another 30 seconds. And whatever you don't get to, I'm going to email everyone who registered, so including, of course, everyone that's here, the slides. And so if you didn't get to anything, you'll have the slides. You'll be able to refer back to them, and you don't need to write everything down at this very second. So another 15 seconds. Then I want to kind of guide you through a visualization to really feel like this is all possible. I'll share maybe an example or two that I found to be really helpful in my life. And then there's one more exercise after that. So with the visualization here, I want you to picture, just choose one question, but I have just celebrated is probably the easiest one to go with. And close your eyes and imagine really celebrating whatever it is that you chose. So maybe it's you met the man or woman of your dreams and you have that wedding party. Maybe you got to the the level in your career that you've always dreamed of, and picture really what that would feel like. Like, allow it to take over your entire body, what that would feel like. What does it smell like in the room? Who are you gathered with? Who are the people that you'd want to be celebrating that with? What would you be doing? How amazing would that feel? And really breathe in that energy. Allow yourself to feel that. And just know that if you're experiencing that right now, if you're feeling how good it would feel, you already have access to that joy right now. You don't need to wait until 3 years from now. It's all here. All of that is accessible in this moment. And if you keep following that joy and channeling that energy, you're going to get to all these 3 years goals. It's all going to happen because you're going to be moving through the world with alignment, energy, fulfillment, joy, and you're going to attract more and more of it. What you appreciate appreciates. So I'll let you just be with that for another 10 seconds. And I wanted to share with you, there's, yeah, I did this exercise. I was in a men's group actually right as COVID started, and it was good timing for me because I'm always kind of, like I said, I'm a seeker, and I've been looking for a more dynamic community and people I could be my full self with. And one of the gentlemen in the group, question 8 is the most important connection I made has been with. And we were all going around and sharing, and mine, at that point I was really into nutrition, and I still to a certain extent am, and I would consider myself really into healing. And I put, like, his name is Sean Stevenson. He's really big in the nutrition space, and I said I'm going to meet him. Like, that's the person I want to meet in 3 years. And everyone went around, and we got to this guy who, he's already done everything. He's been around the world. He's stayed at the nicest resorts in the world. He's got all the money you could ever dream of, stuff I couldn't even fathom. And his answer to the most important connection I made in 2024 was with, he said, I just want to find someone that I can go fly fishing with, someone I could really connect with while I'm fly fishing. And that really stood out to me because it doesn't need to, we have in America, there's a bigger is better and more is better paradigm, I think. And that doesn't need to be the case. Your ideal life could be really simple. Maybe you just live with your family by a lake. It could be anything you want. And as has been the theme throughout, there's no right or wrong answers here. So I just thought I'd share that with you. Anyone care to share about this? And if not, I have one more exercise. Okay. So the last exercise, and this is going to be, you're certainly not going to get this done today, and it might take a while, but it's a really powerful exercise to reflect on, is to think of your entire life story as one arc and write it out. Write out your life story. Like, think about what brought you joy as a kid, what were you drawn to naturally as a kid, what were you curious about, and how have you kind of progressed through your life? How have you moved through the world into present day? And I invited you into using a lot of detail with the Envision Your Ideal Life 3 years out exercise, and I would invite you to do the same thing here. Like, be really granular about the different things that you did when you were a child, or conversely, pain is a good teacher as well. So, like, what were the things that you felt a strong way about? could be positively or negatively. Like for me, sports was always one in the positive direction. I loved sports, but what I really loved about sports was the unbridled joy and the lack of sterility in sports, and that there's kind of a combination of individuality, but also teamwork and working for a greater good of something bigger than you. So I've always loved that authenticity about sports. And something that I feel immense pain with is the fact that there's suffering at all. Like if I pass a homeless person on the streets, I feel a lot of pain. I wish that we lived in a world that that was not the case. And so that's there to teach me something as well, right? There's something that I can offer. If I'm sensitive to that, that means that I could probably help that person. And so as you're going through the arc of your life, pay attention to what were some visceral experiences you had, whether painful, joyful, and as you thread it all together, you will probably have a cool narrative about where you've been and where you want to continue going on this beautiful journey of life. Well, as far as exercises go, that is it. And we've got plenty of time left. And like I said at the beginning, at the top of the workshop, I always offer if someone wants to be coached, whether it's through the chat box or video, I am happy to coach for about 10 minutes here. It could be anything in your life at all.
Um, so as we were talking about the sort of life story as an arc, and I'm trying to like envision things, and especially thinking about childhood,
Mm,
I have a hard time moving past essentially the eulogy I gave for my father 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago. And so when I really sat down and like kind of tried to create these, not create, um, remind myself of these memories and really kind of using that as an arc, I have a hard time. Like the first thing I wrote was dance, and actually that has nothing to do with my dad. But once I sort of said that, and I can't decide whether that's the rote answer because that was my activity all the time. However, it's something I still want to and try to do. But everything after that was kind of, none of it was necessarily about me. Like it just all went straight to my dad, and I guess sort of missing him, and sort of, there's sort of certain very like visual memories that I have of being with him. And
mm,
I mean, again, we sat here and we did this for like 32 seconds. Um, so I'm sure with additional thought, I'd be able to come up with something else. But really, like the first thing that came to mind after dance. So I guess it's the second thing, but I couldn't get past anything than kind of the the little like movie scenes that I had in the eulogy.
mm. Yeah, I mean, so again, I'll point out there isn't. It doesn't have to be a linear or there, and there's not a right or wrong, right? You don't have to be like, this is what I did on my first day on this planet. This is what I did on my third. I think it's whatever you're feeling called to is probably the right answer. It's completely dependent to you. There's probably a reason that whatever I said prompted those experiences that you had with your dad, and I'll invoke the word curiosity again. Like, stay curious about that. Why is that the thing that popped up for you? And then maybe just keep going with it and see where it takes you.
Thanks.
I Yeah, no problem. And if you're concerned that you're missing a large gap of time and that's important to you to find that gap of time, I would say if you, as there's something magical about just getting the pen to the paper, write a bunch of stuff down, and then it'll probably come up to you if you're meant to recall it, and if not, then it's probably not an important arc of the story. Is what the short answer is for me. Does anyone else have any questions or want to be coached for 5 or so minutes here? Well, if not, I want to thank you for spending, it's been about 45 minutes. Thank you for spending 45 minutes of your time with me. I hope this has been a helpful experience for you. Like I said, these were really valuable experiences for me. Okay, Holly has a question. Lay it on me, Holly. Hmm, that is a big question. So how do I deal with my fear that seems to paralyze me? Well, I would love to know more about what that fear is. I would need to hear, yeah, like a description of how that fear shows up for you. This seems also like it would be a something we could take offline, and I'd be happy to offer my time for you, Holly. Anytime someone wants to connect with me, the first time that we talk, it's for an hour and it's completely complimentary. There's no strings attached. So I would be happy to take it offline with you, Holly. And yeah, again, I think that this one is it's better suited for us to talk about it, and I'll give you my schedule. I'll give you a time that you can book for an hour, and let's dive deeper in this. It's tough to work through a big question like that and stuff like that through just a chat box. What I would say is, yeah, I mean that is one of uh, the last point that you brought up, ageism in the workforce. Unfortunately, for better or for worse, I mean that is something that is in there, right? It's being a mom that wants to get back in the workforce. The deck is stacked against you a little bit, right? Our society is not really structured very well for childcare and for parents to make enough money and have the means to provide a comfortable life for the children while also having the time to provide the actual nurturing and emotional support necessary. So it's a really tough, those are complicated topics. But when me and you talk, Holly, it'll be more personal in nature, right? It's about how can you kind of be the author of your own experience and shift from fear into a more empowered place of like, yeah, I'm in control of my life here, and how can I take the best steps for me and move away from fear. So I look forward to having that conversation with you. And I'm just going to go back to this slide for a second. It just gives my contact information and where you can find me and get in touch with me. So if you want to email me, and I'm going to send out the slides, so you'll have my email. It's coaching@miketrubman.com, and my website, Instagram, and LinkedIn are the three places where I'm the most active. So you can find me there. And just to leave you with a quote from Mr. Tony Robbins, one of the top people in personal development: the only impossible journey is the one you never begin. Can I put this information in the chat? Sure, I can. And my LinkedIn is just, you can search my name, you'll find it. All right. Well, a special thank you to everyone who stuck around to the very end here. A lot of people jumped off, but thank you for spending the whole time with me. Like I said, I'll send the slides. I hope you got something out of this. And I'll give an even special shout out to Gail for being on camera the whole time and for participating with me. I appreciate it. That's the workshops I've done. There's usually one person who's on video and who's really actively participating. So I thank you for being that person today, Gail.
I force myself to do it to be able to fully engage because I know it's easy for me not to. So I try. You're welcome. Thank you.
My pleasure. And yeah, for any of you here, if there's anything I could do to help, feel free to email me. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Enjoy this beautiful, unseasonably warm day, and yeah, enjoy it while it lasts. It'll be chilly in a couple of weeks before we know it. Take care, everyone.